1985 and believes this is the spot where the UFO impacted.
Well, you have the photo. Does this area here look like it might match?
Oh, Ted, this is the best match we've seen all day. I think the photograph that we have here was taken 5-10 feet behind us, looking in that direction.
We have these, what look like 1 or 2 fence posts. It looks like some barbed wire and a fence post here. And it looks like another one right up there.
The fence posts and Stan Gordon's matching photograph, taken alongside eyewitnesses, all point to this spot as the site of the Kecksburg crash. But for years, debunkers claimed that what caused the damage in this ravine was a Russian space probe. The shape and size of the Cosmos 96 probe, originally slated to reach Venus, was similar to what eyewitnesses described. But recently, even this explanation was thrown out. According to NASA's National Space Science Data Center, quote, U.S. Air Force tracking data on Cosmos 96 also indicate the spacecraft orbit decayed earlier than the 4:43 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the 9th of December. But NASA's interest in the crash extends further back. At this very site in 1965, witnesses saw NASA officials alongside the military.
I see NASA there with their uniform on, their patch on the side. They had that white aluminum on.
And this all ties back to Roswell. A secretive approach to a crash. Something taken from the site, on board a flatbed truck, covered by a tarp, and under cover of night. But after all these years, could they have missed something?
Pete Hutchinson here has an array of scientific instrumentation for scanning the Earth around the site.
We're going to look at the architecture of the site to see if anything is still here that is evidence of a possible crash 43 years ago.
Pete Hutchinson and his assistant Brian begin the electromagnetic scanning of the ground. The tool emits electromagnetic energy into the soil, and moisture carries the current, which is sensitive to metal.
So we'll be able to find any metals and then also any anomalous soil conductivities?
Correct.
Okay, well, why don't we put the tool to work?
During the search, the scanner picks up some metal conductivity. But the size and identity of the metal is unknown without further information processing. Significant anomalies appear on the two-dimensional map.
That red indicates a heightened level. Just how strong is that?
That's fairly decent for this area. There's definitely metal there.
So you're saying that metal is naturally occurring metal?
It comes from something other than what's naturally occurring in this area.
You think a signature like this might be consistent with a crashed vehicle? Is that possible?
Yeah, that's possible.
According to Hutchinson, what makes this unusual is the high concentration. This amount of metal is not typical in this area of Pennsylvania. Hutchinson suggests that the team dig in this area to determine the source.
This science only tells us where to look, and the next step is to go in there and investigate. Physically dig it and do an intrusive test.
An archaeological dig.
An archaeological dig, yes, exactly.
The team needs to expose the area before dark, so Pat joins to assist on the dig. When the soil is uncovered, Pete uses the ground-penetrating radar to look for a specific metal source.
Hey, check this out. It starts here, starts right there, and it ends right there. It's not natural. That is definitely not natural.
With the sunlight fading, the dig will have to wait until morning. What is the source of the metal buried at this alleged crash site?
Now, I don't know what's down there, but I can't wait to start digging and turn up some answers.
In the investigation into the alleged Kecksburg UFO crash, ground-penetrating radar has revealed an anomalous source of metal at the exact spot where eyewitnesses claimed the UFO crashed in 1965. The team has exposed the site and are ready to continue digging to discover the source of the metal. But within minutes, the investigation suddenly hits an impenetrable wall.
The GPR told us that you've got metallic conductivity, and I'm hitting bedrock. Now, either the object skimmed along the surface, or the metal would have to be under the bedrock, which is totally unlikely.
Maybe this thing did come across this area and left some kind of a residue on the stone.
But upon closer examination, the bedrock itself is the reason for the anomalous hits. According to Pete, this bedrock contains iron.
The rocks themselves could be so heavily ferrous that they're giving a false positive to the GPR.
So whatever hits we got may have nothing to do with the crash.
Despite the bedrock's false hits, the overwhelming witness testimony and the corroborating interviews makes the site compelling.
This is where everyone agrees the object came down. And there was, according to all eyewitnesses, a military presence hauling this craft away. We didn't find anything today, but an object crashed right here in Kecksburg.
Bill now turns back to the Needles crash. George Knapp, an investigative reporter for KLAS television in Las Vegas, has a surprising lead on the helicopters allegedly seen after the crash.
We were working on a story about black helicopters before we started working on this Needles story. Figured out who they were. They work for this very interesting outfit out of Fort Campbell, Kentucky, the Night Stalkers.
Task Force 160.
The Night Stalkers, or Task Force 160, is a special ops aviation regiment, and it requires a secret clearance for all of its members.
When George Knapp was investigating what group of black helicopters might have been operating in Needles, California, he discovered they were the Night Stalkers, the very same group that was transporting a flaming object in the Cash Landrum incident in Texas in 1980.
The Cash Landrum incident, like Needles, involved military helicopters pursuing and removing a strange glowing object, which led to 3 witnesses developing strange blisters and radiation sickness. But Knapp's investigation digs further and discovers military personnel that were working in Needles on unnamed top-secret projects. Could these be the elusive men in black, reported by many UFO witnesses?
These guys were driving back to Las Vegas from Needles. Pretty soon they come up and they drive up right next to us, the engine running, and they get out and start talking to us. They said they're federal agents. They flashed a badge, and sure enough, they are legitimately federal agents. They work for an agency I had never heard of before. They transport nuclear weapons.
But the specifics of why these agents are in Needles are still unknown.
They're highly trained. They're a dangerous group of people. These guys are commandos. They carry all kinds of weapons. They're very tough customers. I'm not sure that they're going to be happy that they've got this much attention.
Despite their presence, Knapp doesn't believe that these agents are men in black, or that they are involved with the nearby crash. Yet in both the Needles and Kecksburg crashes, eyewitnesses reported seeing large objects being hauled away by military vehicles. If this agency is not involved, who is?
What we're finding out is that the stories of people who say there was a strange federal government agency in black SUVs traveling in Needles right around the day after that event, those stories are true.
Whatever crashed, Area 51 planes were seen in the vicinity. The helicopters that retrieved the object may have been involved in another case, where people were exposed to radiation. And now, federal agents in the Needles area, by their own admission, have some association with nuclear weapons. Could this crash involve some craft that uses nuclear technology, emits radiation, and be so top secret that its home base is Area 51?
What's missing is hard physical evidence at an actual crash site.
We know that there was military involvement suppressing the information.
They move in, they fill the air with misinformation, and then they deny that anything happened.
With sites cleansed of all signs of a crash, could these incidents have national security implications? Whatever is falling out of the sky, the military seems intent on keeping it secret.